Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video. So as you can see, I am looking exactly the same as I was in my previous video, which if you haven't yet watched it, please go and check it out. I'll link it in the description box below. But basically, I thought I was going to be able to fit in everything that I wanted to talk about in that video, including this conversation that I wanted to have today in that one video. But I just felt like I was recording for a long time. It was becoming way too long. So I felt like in order for this conversation to be done the justice that I believe that it deserves, I was going to just film a completely separate video to that one in itself. So I am back, and as you can tell by the title of this video, I want to actually discuss something that has been a real hot topic all over social media, all over the TL, so the timeline on Twitter especially, and something that I definitely feel like needs to be where the conversation needs to be had outside of the context of Twitter and outside of the context of the spewing of hatred and hate and people just being really malicious. And to be very honest with you, I haven't said anything on social media. I haven't talked about it. I haven't said anything just because for me, that's just not how I roll. I feel like Twitter is a really weird place, okay? A very strange place. And just in case you have no idea where this conversation is branching out from and why this is such an important topic to talk about right now. So when was it? Oh, it was this week, beginning of this week, okay? Hopefully this video comes out on time when I actually want it to come out. But beginning of this week, there were basically a whole bunch of tweets that were uncovered and unearthed by that were made by people who are influencers and content creators and people who basically are in the public eye right now, who made disgusting, insensitive, self-hating, because you know a lot of the references that were made were in context of what we're going to be talking about now, from people who were obviously black. Various types of comments, some which were outside of race, but I don't even want to talk about that one. I'm not addressing, but just some very painful things. Now the reason why I say painful is because it's a reflection of the mindset of people back in that time, right? Now, I've not come here to mention any names. Let me state that number one. I've not come here to bash anybody. Let me state that number two. So if you think that this is going to be me bashing people, you don't know me well enough and you need to exit stage left, because that's never ever been me. I'm not here to make excuses for anybody at all, whether you believe it or not. I'm not here to make excuses for anybody whatsoever, but I wanted us to really actually dig deep and uncover this conversation, because I just felt like, again, Twitter was just carnage. Like, it was just a mess. And I remember going on there, like, I'm not really a huge Twitter user like that. Anyone that follows me, you can follow me if you want, Nissy T. I tweet here and there sometimes and it's connected to my Instagram, so sometimes things from my Instagram go into there. But other than that, I'm not really like a proper on the TL type person. I'm more YouTube, Instagram. That's my kind of, you know, more my vibe, more kind of my scene. But I remember people just being like, have you seen Twitter? Have you seen Twitter? And it was a whole bunch of carnage. And by the way, I'm not bringing this up in order for me to not leave dead dogs lie. I literally just felt passionate about this topic and I wanted to discuss it. And I was just like, do you know what? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it in a bit more depth. So some of the tweets, we already know what it is. We don't need to go over it again. But ultimately, there were tweets from black women basically taking the piss out of, or laughing at, or, you know, saying very harsh and horrible, mean things about black women and other black women. Now, colorism is something that runs so deep in the black community. I think we need to actually understand that this is not something that's new or something that has just been, you know, just come out of nowhere. Colorism runs way deeper than we think, you know, from even, you know, we talk about slavery all the time, and we talk about, you know, being colonized, etc. But I don't think we even discuss about even after slavery, after, you know, colonization, and a lot of countries had become independent. Like, listen, for example, I'm Congolese. That's where I'm from, the Democratic Republic of Congo. And there are a number of stereotypes that are kind of stuck onto our community, and one of which is about bleaching. And, you know, for me personally, I believe that stereotypes come from somewhere. Those stereotypes might not necessarily be nice. They might be mean. Stereotypes come from somewhere, okay? And there's this stereotype of Congolese people bleaching. And it has been a problem. And I say it's a problem because this is an issue. some people might just say, oh, but it's your choice, it's your body. If you want to decide to become lighter or lighten your skin, that's absolutely fine. And honestly speaking, you can do whatever you want. Who am I to tell you what is right for you or not right for you? Who am I to tell you that you shouldn't bleach your skin or that you shouldn't do this? But I'm just speaking from a perspective that I like to think ahead. I like to think, if I had a daughter or I had a son, and obviously I'm, you know, about to marry a black man, you know, he's a dark skinned black man. And so our children could come out very dark skinned. I don't know. They could, you know, with black people, it could swing either way. Like, the parents sometimes are dark and the kids come out light. The parents are light, the kids come out dark. It could vary so much, right? So as somebody who is about to embark on a life and build a future with a black man, and know that we have black children, I always like to think ahead. I always like to think, what would I say to my kids if, for example, the conversation ever came up that my skin is too dark or I feel ugly? Because that's what's been associated for years, for a very, very long time, whether it be through everything. The messaging has been so deeply engraved, whether it be in books, in literature, whether it be in paintings. I remember, you know, because I studied English literature at uni, so we used to look at all forms of art. We used to look at books, poems, you know, art as in paintings and portraits and all that sort of thing. And you even look back to paintings that were made in the 1700s and the 1800s. There's evidence of, you know, colorism in that, in the fact that, you know, there will be pictures where the most beautiful, lighter, fairer skinned, even if it was like a painting of black people, the lighter, fairer skinned black person was always put to the forefront. They were always deemed to be beautiful, the most radiant, and then normally the darker skinned black individual would be right at the back. Like, they would be at the back washing up clothes or just doing something that basically shows that you are a servant, you are below, you are beneath, you are to be at the back, to be not to be seen and not to be heard. Whereas the fairer your skin, the lighter you are, the more beautiful you are. This is a narrative that has been so deeply instilled throughout history. So this is not something that just happened in 2012 or 2014 or whenever it was that these people were tweeting these things, okay? These are things that have been deeply rooted. Like I said, I am Congolese. I come from an environment where pretty much everyone that I knew, every auntie, even uncle that I knew, used to use the creams like Carolite, Fair, whatever those creams are called. I can't even remember anymore. But all of these creams that basically lighten up your skin, because again, there's this messaging that the lighter your skin is, the brighter you are, the more beautiful you are. It is a messaging that was so deeply rooted that people, you could clearly see that people's skin was deteriorating and suffering, and people were probably had skin cancer, didn't say anything, but probably had skin cancer, but would rather they go through all of that, go through damaging their skin and putting these chemicals on their bodies just to look better and to look more beautiful, because of the narrative and the story that has been instilled for such a long time. Even if, for example, we look at, you know, magazines and stories and film, even movies, you know, only recently did we start seeing the main protagonist and the main heroine being the dark-skinned black woman. You know, we recently saw Queen and Slim, which was a beautiful movie. And now I know different people have different opinions about Queen and Slim, but I loved it. It was artistic. Like, that film was art. For me, I watched it and I went to go and watch it with Ben, and we both loved it. We both literally felt like that was just art. It was just so artistically put together. It was beautiful. Now imagine, I can't remember, I'm so sorry, I can't remember the Queen's name. Let me actually put some respect on her name and actually Google what her name is. So Jodie Turner-Smith, beautiful, dark-skinned, beautiful woman, right? She played the female lead, and she played that alongside Daniel Kaluuya, who, again, another beautiful brown dark-skinned man. And that film was just beautiful. But in the past, let's be real, let's really think about all the movies and the films that we might have grown up on, that we might recognize and remember. Now imagine, this is not explicit. Nobody's saying that, you know, darker skin is bad and light skin is good, even though that used to be the case in the past, you know, with slavery and all of the stuff that we already know. I don't even want to go into that because we know this stuff, right? But even with films and art and all these various things, they might not explicitly be saying to you that the fairer skinned, the lighter skinned black woman or the lighter skinned black man is better than this other person. But the fact that there wasn't enough representation of it, the fact that Queen and Slim, watching two protagonists in this movie who were dominating and who were the main the main focus of this movie, and that it just made me feel wow, reveals that there was definitely something wrong. So imagine if that has been the narrative and the reinforcing narrative that has been driving film and driving film and education and all these different things. Just imagine the mindset that so many people had growing up. You know, a lot of us were very ignorant. We were very ignorant. To say and to state that I knew everything at the age of 12, 13, 14, whatever it is, would be a lie. I bet you there's some things that I have said or that I might have even tweeted. I don't know, also because I've also always been a bit of an old soul, so I've always been quite apprehensive of putting things out there, because I always thought to myself, you do know that this is never going to disappear. And because I always had this this imagination that I'm going to be somebody one day. One day I'm going to be so powerful that somebody is going to want to try and find something to try and destroy me on. I will never give that person that thing. Now, what normal 12, 13, 14-year-old thinks like that? Not the average 12, 13, 14, okay? I've just always been a bit different. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I basically say that to say that when I was growing up, things were very, very different. There wasn't none of this black girl magic. There wasn't none of this self-love, which I am so glad that we have. Because even though I never had, at least I don't believe that I ever had a complex about myself. But then again, it's very different for me because I understand my privilege in the sense of being a lighter skinned girl. Now, I know there was a certain video where, you know, someone mentioned that and people didn't like it, but I'm just saying it in the sense that I recognize there's elements of privilege, because if the narrative has always drawn towards white and lighter skin, then I know that to some people's eyes, I would have always been favorable in comparison, right? So for me, there's an element of privilege. So when I say that, you know, I've never really had that complex, I don't know what it's like to be a dark-skinned black woman, and I can only imagine what it was like to be a dark-skinned black woman growing up when I was growing up and feeling as though you just weren't beautiful, you just weren't good enough, always being the butt of the joke, people always making jokes about you, people always making fun out of you. I know, again, this is not an excuse, but it was very much the norm. Just like I truly do believe, and this is by no means a comparison, guys, I'm just using it as a way to try and flesh out this conversation. Just like I know for a fact that there are some things that we do today which we believe are completely normal, and in 10 years time people will be standing up and protesting and tearing people to shreds online and basically saying, what the hell are you doing? This is wrong. How the hell could you have thought that that was okay to say? I truly do believe that, because the nature and the face of society looks very, very different. Just like, again, racism is not an excuse, okay? It's not an excuse for you to physically hate somebody that has a different skin color from you. But I also understand the complex and the psychology of it, right? Because if you tell somebody enough times that something is wrong, they will believe that that's the truth. I had a conversation recently, and there was a quote that came up, and I don't know if it was Hitler that said it, and I don't know why the hell I'm coming to quote Hitler, but it was somebody basically was saying that in relation to Hitler and the way that he indoctrinated people, and he got all of these people to join his movement, which now we look back, we're like, it was disgusting what they did. The Holocaust was disgusting. They murdered a huge amount of people, absolutely disgusting. But if you think about it, in that time there were people who literally thought that what they were doing was right. They literally thought that what they were doing was right because of the conditioning of the time and the frame that they were in. Now, murder is always wrong, right? We always know in our heart of hearts that things are wrong, okay? And even when it comes to things like colorism, etc., I can genuinely say I feel like when those people were saying those things, they knew that it was wrong. They knew, okay? And let's be very, very clear again, because with YouTube, people just like to hear what they want to hear. Let me be very, very clear. The things that were stated and the things that were said were disgusting, they were abhorrent, and they were wrong. Nobody should ever be made into a joke. Nobody should ever be described in such a way. Nobody should ever be torn down and pulled down and torn apart because of the color of their skin, how they look, their sexuality, whatever it is. Listen, that's not something that we should be doing as human beings, right? Full stop, point blank, period. But again, if something is being told to people for long enough, guess what people start to do? They internalize that. They internalize it and it becomes the truth. And the reason why I quoted Hitler was because there's a quote or something that was used in association with him. It's that if you tell people a lie enough times, or it sounds super, I'm trying to paraphrase it, but it sounds close enough to the truth, and you tell it to them enough times, they will start to believe that that is the truth. So imagine for however long, people consistently and constantly being told that darker skin was bad, darker skin was ugly, darker skin was this, you know, these people can be the butt of jokes. Yes, you can laugh at this person, why the hell not? And so in the context and the environment of school and places like that, when you are so young and so impressionable, that was, you know, that was the herd mentality. And unfortunately, human beings tend to have that sheep and herd mentality. And I know that a lot of people were like, oh, well, I never said anything like that. And even myself, you know, I can genuinely say, like, because I was always thinking 10 steps ahead, always thinking, you know, why would I want to disempower, tear down, be horrible towards people that look like me? Why would I want to reinforce that? Again, not everybody was in that place. Not everybody was in that space. Again, it doesn't excuse what happened, but it speaks more to the environment and the time that they were in. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that just because everybody else was doing something, you should have joined in. No, we all know right from wrong. We all made a decision and we all should be held accountable to that. But I truly do believe that Twitter basically did what Twitter does, right? Everybody missed the point. And this is the bit that drove me crazy. And this is why I even wanted to do this video. This was actually this space where we could actually have a conversation. Well, not the space, but the time where after all these things were revealed and all these things were being pulled up to the surface, we could actually have a conversation about colorism, about experiences that people have had. But instead, it turned into what people do, and then they get surprised when people go and commit suicide. It turned into dragging people through the mud in a disgusting and unbelievable manner. I mean, it's insane. How do you think that you are doing any better by now talking about somebody's deceased mother, talking about deceased family members? How do you truly believe that you are doing some form of, I don't know, is it some form of like Robin Hood complex where you feel like I'm gonna steal from the rich and deliver to the poor? Like you feel like, you know, if you tear this person down, it's undoing colorism and the issues that the wider context and the wider issues that actually come from the things that were being pulled up. It makes absolutely no sense. And it's something that drives me crazy, and probably why I'm just not as in the Twitter sphere as other people, especially Black Twitter, because Black Twitter can be lethal. And again, I'm not saying that people don't have the right to be angry. I'm not saying that people don't have the right to pull up on people and be like, why did you say this? Why did you do this? People 100% should be held accountable. I 1000% believe in that. But I felt as though a moment was missed the moment that people took it too far, and the moment that people did exactly the opposite of what we should be doing during these times. You know, these are the times where we should be uncovering things like this and actually having conversations. Yes, holding people accountable, but now having conversations. How do we unravel and unpack this? How do we do better as a race, as Black people? Because it was only Black people that were involved in this conversation, right? I know that there were probably some, you know, other races of people, but that's irrelevant. This is not their conversation. I'm talking to all of my Black people right now, right? This, you pull this up, and I'm talking to the individuals that felt like the only way for us to undo this wrong was to literally drag people out through the mud and to spew so much hatred and disgusting behavior towards them. And do you know what's crazy? In probably 5, 10, 15 years from now, your tweets are probably going to be pulled up, because then people are going to be like, so is this what you say to people because they've done something wrong? You know, and for me, it was just, I don't even know where I'm trying to even go with this. My main thing is just that I feel as though we missed out on such an important opportunity to have a real conversation about unpacking and unraveling colorism. The fact that it is so deep rooted, the fact that it led to so many people being so self-hating that it was painful to read those tweets, because it was sad. It wasn't even like, I read those tweets and I didn't even feel like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they said that. I literally felt like, how sad it was to know that you, beautiful young black child, looked at yourself in this way, and you felt as though it was okay. You hated yourself so much that you felt as though it was okay for you to spew that hate on other people. It was sad. And if we caught that, and if we really had that revelation, we would actually be like, wait a minute, what are we going to do better moving forward? What are we going to instill in our children so that they don't have to go through those things? What are we going to put in place in order for us as a community to make sure that we are protecting one another, not bringing each other down, but protecting each other? Because that's what so many people through generations have not wanted to happen. Why on earth do you think that the continent, the beautiful continent of Africa, had to be divided in order for it to be conquered? It's the whole point of divide and conquer, and it's something that has been so pumped into the veins of our community as black people. Granted, blackness varies in so many different ways. You know, there's African Americans, there's African black British, there's African, there's Caribbean, there's so many different people. And I know that there's also this other conversation of, you know, the fact that we are the only group of people that get lumped together despite our diversity, despite the various different cultures that we have. We get lumped all together. But for a second, I'm going to lump us together because we share something in common, and that's the color of our skin, and the fact that whether we be Caribbean, African, whatever, the world still sees us as black. Okay, let's just be 100% real. What are we going to do so that we don't keep going through this whole divide and conquer thing, where we don't keep tearing each other down, where we don't keep using things like this as an opportunity to kick people while they're down and to look for people's downfall? This should be that moment should have been an opportunity, and I wish the conversation went in a different way, whereby it was like, yes, these people need to be held accountable. They say what they need to say, because guess what? Whatever they say anyway, you're not gonna like it. That's just the thing of social media. Whatever they say, however the person apologizes, you're not going to like it. Just like, for a fact, and you're not forced to like it either. Just like, for example, there's some people who have made racist comments and I've kind of just dismissed it. They've apologized and I didn't really believe that their apology was genuine, and I dismissed it and I kept it moving. But I also did not spend my time tearing that person down, because I still believe in their humanity. Though they may have issues in the way that I am, I'm still going to believe in their humanity, because it's not going to make a difference if I now decide to hate you because you hate me. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm not saying be best friends with that person, you know, go and you know, talk to them and do whatever it is. You don't even have to care about their existence. But why do we feel the need to tear people down and to drag them through the mud, when actually we should be having conversations that can uplift and build our community and ensure that these things don't get repeated and don't get recycled and don't keep happening? Because that's all that's going to happen when we miss out on the point, when we miss out on the conversation, when we stop communicating with each other effectively and actually saying that this is an issue. How can we make sure our daughters, our sisters, our little siblings don't go through what we went through? How can we make sure that happens? We miss it completely because we're too busy tearing each other down and being disgusting. I think that's the only way I can describe it. Being disgusting. I'm probably going to end it there and I'm going to wrap it up there. But again, I just want to reiterate something and make it very, very clear. I did not film this video in order for anybody to be excused. Hence why I didn't mention any names. I didn't mention any people. You already know who they are. But I just said it. But I filmed this video because I felt as though it was very important for us to discuss this issue that has been so prevalent in our community for centuries. This is not something new. It didn't happen. It didn't just arise in 2012 and 2013 and 2014. We've seen it. But how can we deconstruct it? How can we get rid of it? How can we really get rid of these stupid, ridiculous, negative perceptions, not even so anybody else can accept us. I don't care about whether or not another community accepts me or not. I don't give a crap. I will keep doing what I'm doing, and I hope that you keep doing what you're doing and climbing the ladder and grinding and working hard in a world that might not necessarily care about you, or even in a world that might not necessarily want to even see you win. My thing is just how within our own community do we have the right conversations to ensure that these cycles are not repeated? Because I know that as I raise my black children, I want to instill with them from a very young age the fact that, listen, your blackness, it might be the one thing that is targeted for the rest of your life, but as long as you know who you are and you know what you stand in and you know the power of your skin, you know the power of who you are and your identity and your roots and your history, there is nothing that anybody can do on this planet, nothing that anyone can do to you that can ever tear you down, that can ever, that can ever diminish who you are. That's the type of environment I want to raise my children in. I want us to have these conversations from a very young age, because let's be real, even with our own parents, like I said, I'm Congolese, so I grew up around an environment where a lot of people were light in their skin. And if it wasn't for the fact that, I was a nerd and I've always been someone that's always been into my books and looking at history and understanding things from a different perspective, and understanding that, wait a minute, throughout history, there was always this narrative that, black people were just not beautiful and they shouldn't be accepted and that they're the bottom of the barrel and all of these different things. If it wasn't for me doing that at an early age, who knows what I could have spewed out. God forbid I was also one of those people, that spewed out such hatred and nonsensity. But I know that I grew up with a different mentality, and I also grew up in a very strong household where, I was told, you don't ever disrespect anybody. You treat the cleaner just as well as you treat the CEO, so you treat people with respect. And for me, respecting people was definitely not tearing them down and talking bad about them. That was just never my thing. But I know that that was me, and maybe that was you as well. So you're like, well, what's their excuse? Listen, there are so many circumstances as to why a person thinks a particular type of way. Again, I'm not saying that you should forgive everybody. If you don't want to forgive them, no problem. I'm not saying just brush it under the carpet and pretend it didn't happen. No, people should be held accountable every single time. But how do we learn and how do we grow? That's my main question. But anyway, guys, I'm going to end it there. I appreciate you for even watching the entirety of this video and just watching as I had a little bit of a mini rant, I guess, just because it definitely was on my heart and it frustrated me a lot, because I felt as though, like, okay, cool, people should be held accountable 1000%. But when it starts to go over the edge and it becomes just more of a, like, who can tear this person down more, it misses the point. And it's like, so what do you really want? And this is something else. I remember discussing a conversation recently, the fact that it is said the victim never really wants justice. The victim wants to become as bad as the person that's doing that horrible thing to them. So that basically means, oftentimes people claim that they just want justice and they want things to be fair. But most of the time, if you put them in the position of that other person that did the wrong, they would probably do the exact same thing, because, whether it be because of the situation, the circumstance, the environment, the power trip, whatever it is, they would probably end up doing the exact same thing as them. But yeah, I definitely hope that this is an opportunity for us to learn. For all of my black people out there, let us really take this time to self-reflect, because it's so easy to get caught up with everything that's going on social media. But let's just take this time to really self-reflect in order for these things to not be repeated, and in order for people to be considered as human beings. Let's do better, guys. Let's work on doing better within ourselves first, so that we don't carry those things out to our children. The complexes, the inferior complex, the whatever it is that, you might even till this day have because of the color of your skin. You need to work on that within yourself so that you don't now instill that on your children. I mean, I grew up in an environment where I heard some comments, even coming from my own family members, that are very, very sad. But again, they came from an environment where, they had just been liberated from colonization, just gotten independence. And the mindset hadn't yet shifted. So I've heard comments myself where I've had to check even my own parents and be like, yo, you can't say that. Like my mum, I've had to be like, mum, you can't say that. Like, why do you think like that? Why do you say that? And it's crazy because it's so deep rooted. And I know that if they had Twitter in their time, there's probably things that we'll be pulling up about our own parents, things that they've said that's wild, and that favors the white man, or favors, you know, people of lighter skin and of a certain complexion, that favors them over everybody else. So again, these are all things that we're unlearning, we're all growing, we're all human. We all can grow past things. Again, making it very clear, it's not acceptable. It's not a rite of passage for people to go through a phase where they hate black women, or they drag black people, especially black women, because it always ends up being black women especially that end up getting the brunt of jokes and the brunt of, you know, colorist issues. It is definitely not a rite of passage, but at the same time, it's important that we learn from these things and we evolve as a people. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Make sure you share this around as well. And let's start a conversation. Listen, I'm all about conversation. I'm all about conversing. So please, let's start a conversation in the comment section below. Whether you agree with me or not, I do not mind. That's why I don't actually delete comments unless they're very, very horrible and they're, you know, genuinely just bashing me or somebody or one of my loved ones. I don't delete comments. I let people have their opinion, and that is absolutely fine. You know, that's the beauty of this world. We don't always have to agree, but also let's just have a conversation. And if there are areas that, you know, these are the areas that we need to be sorting and getting ourselves together, let's actually have those conversations and let's talk about what we can do to evolve as a people and as a community. But yeah, stay beautiful.